Welcome to the Know. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Gus.
Looks like net neutrality is back on the chopping block, ladies and gentlemen, because apparently the FCC is getting ready to reverse all the rules that protect the web from throttled or blocked content by internet providers. Yay!
That could spell big problems for just about everybody who uses the internet, which is everybody. But it should be particularly troubling for people who stream content and play video games online, meaning potentially higher prices and less access to the things we've already enjoyed at no additional cost.
That's probably all of us. It's like the microtransactioning of the internet world.
Ooh.
It's coming.
Well, sort of. While net neutrality is kind of a dry topic, this really is a much bigger deal than everyone's favorite new punching bag, pay-to-win loot boxes, because internet access is so important these days, some countries consider it a human right.
And also, it's very convenient and fun, and we spend a lot of time on the internet. It matters to us.
I live on the internet.
This report about the FCC's plans to dismantle net neutrality, as we know, it comes from Reuters, citing two sources familiar with the matter. Based on their report, it looks like the end of net neutrality could be voted on in a December meeting by the FCC, with their proposal to do so being introduced as soon as next week. And considering that Chairman Ajit Pai is dealing with a conservative majority that's supported him so far, it's looking fairly likely to pass.
R.I.P. net neutrality. This shouldn't be too much of a surprise to anyone who's followed the FCC's actions over the last year. The groundwork has been laid steadily for the better part of 2017 to reverse the protections for net neutrality voted on back in 2015.
Now, if you need a little refresher course on what that decision entailed, well, it wasn't quite as big a deal as people made it, mostly because it was preserving the internet as we know today, not changing something. That doesn't tend to make huge waves the way changing something does. So it was quieter.
Yeah, however, it did put in place some things to help net neutrality survive the ambitions of telecoms. The vote basically lumped internet providers in the Telecommunications Act of 1934, giving the FCC the same power to regulate them as they do with phone providers.
And the main things they wanted to regulate at that time were that there could be no such thing as an internet fast lane, where higher paying users have better, faster access to specific websites. Or the decision also gave them the power to regulate for mobile broadband as well, which the FCC previously didn't have much say over. Plus, it disallowed providers from throttling services that took up a lot of their bandwidth, like, I don't know, Netflix, for example, which takes up a huge percentage of all of the bandwidth in the internet forever. Or holding that access for ransom and making Netflix pay an additional fee, which they actually have done with some providers previously. However, it still allowed them to make backroom deals for better access.
At the time, then FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler wrote, "My proposal assures the rights of internet users to go where they want, when they want, and the rights of innovators to introduce new products without asking anyone's permission." Now,
naturally, broadband providers didn't take too kindly to the new restrictions. They prompted them to challenge the ruling in court. That happened last summer when AT&T and CenturyLink and others tried to have the ruling overturned. However, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit upheld the open internet rules, which meant it was going to get kicked over to the Supreme Court.
But that might not be necessary anymore, since the basic protections and open internet rules are allegedly going to be on the cutting board next month, with the FCC now pushing to overturn them.
Now, as we said earlier, they've already been on a fast track to dismantle a lot of the net neutrality rules throughout 2017. Back in May, the FCC voted 2-1 to overturn an order that internet service providers should be classified as basic utilities, so that basically pulls them out of the Telecommunications Act of 1934, and that'll loosen the legal definition of internet providers and give current Chairman Ajit Pai more tools to operate with, to take apart the net neutrality protections.
And if you're wondering why anybody would want this, well, there's a couple of viewpoints from those that want net neutrality to go away. The big corporations claim that getting rid of net neutrality rules would lead to more internet innovation and keep the government from messing with the internet too much. I don't get this more innovation argument. It doesn't make any sense.
It's just marketing. As for the FCC Chairman Ajit Pai, he feels that the FCC's job is to regulate transgressions on a case-by-case basis rather than blanket restrictions on the front end, and he thinks that that will lead to better business overall.
Of course, there are plenty of people who disagree with both of those claims. FCC Commissioner Minion Clyburn, part of the group's Democratic minority, says this is a destructive path. Clyburn wrote in a statement, "What consumers want is access to a free and open internet without fear of being throttled or assessed a toll by their broadband service provider."
Clyburn gets me.
I kind of think that we shouldn't refer to these board members by party, by Democrat or Republican. I think that this is an issue.
This is an issue that affects everyone,
transcends
honestly.
Party.
Well, you would hope so, but it seems to be a mentality thing. But as for what the public thinks, that starts to get a little bit messy. Back in May, the FCC turned debate over to the public, asking them to leave comments about net neutrality, and Well, that went off the rails completely with lawsuits, allegations of a cover-up by the FCC, you name it.
It was not ideal. When the call for comments went out, the website quickly flooded with millions of comments, more than 22 million of them.
That's a lot of comments.
Many of which seemed to be in support of dismantling the net neutrality rules. However, suspicions arose that many of those comments were coming from a bot, plus there were several posted under real names without that person's knowledge.
Yeah, when the FCC was sent a public records request for those 22 million comments, it's a request that they're legally bound to respond to. They ignored it, and now they're getting sued over that. In that lawsuit, they're being asked to submit the names and email addresses from all the commenters in order to fish out how many are fake, how many are real.
Almost like they're kind of delaying and sandbagging until after the vote, huh? Another separate study of the comments done by internet service providers found that when you rolled out duplicate comments, 98% of commenters were against the FCC ditching net neutrality rules.
Well, that seems like a bit of a change.
How often can you get 98% of people to agree on anything?
Not often.
That's amazing.
Considering how slowly the legal wheels turn, it is unlikely that anything significant will happen on that front before this expected December meeting, where it's expected that the FCC is going to have its way and the open internet rules will be overturned, which, as we said before, will definitely have an effect at some point in how providers handle things like games and streaming. Well, both.
Yeah, and while there hasn't been anything too alarming proposed by providers before this all went into place, you can only imagine the kinds of things some of them might try to get away with. Like if a service like Steam, Xbox Live, or PSN is determined to take way too much of a provider's bandwidth.
And they might, because game downloads are getting way bigger. Imagine like if you download 100 gigabytes per game, that's all bandwidth that comes through your ISP.
Yeah, then what if that ISP starts charging a special fee or tier to give you unrestricted access on your monthly internet plan?
Or it gets throttled.
Right, or you only get a megabit if you don't pay for gaming tier or something.
The same goes for streaming services like Netflix or HBO Go or Hulu or Amazon, all of which no doubt put stress on ISPs, and they're used by hundreds of millions of subscribers, and they're all business models that rely on subscribers being able to access their content via their internet.
I'm going to ad-lib for a second here. This is already kind of happening. If you have a cell phone through T-Mobile, you get unlimited Netflix. It doesn't count against your data, and I think if you have AT&T, you don't get data counting against your HBO Go. That's already a net neutrality
there
violation.
There is one thing that you'll note that these, like the streaming providers, they don't complain about it when it's in their favor.
Right, and of course a customer is not going to complain when they're getting free data.
Right.
But that is a violation of net neutrality.
Yeah, although on the flip side, I know that Netflix did have to strike a deal with, was it Comcast? Where they were basically paying extra in order to get unthrottled access to their customers. It's crazy.
Ad-lib over. Back in July, many websites and companies participated in a day of action to show users what the internet could be like if those regulations were rolled back. And if you'll recall, it was a day of shitty, super slow internet where websites were deliberately blocked or slowed down for visitors in order to raise awareness on the subject, or as I call it, 1996.
I like to think that all we really need to do is make it so that the porn downloads really slowly to here and then breaks.
Yeah.
And then suddenly everyone's in favor of net neutrality. You gotta have access to the boobs. Will that be the case for real soon though? I mean, I guess we'll see how it all goes down next month, but at the moment, it does seem like those in favor of net neutrality don't have a lot to look forward to.
What do you guys think of the reports of the FCC's imminent plans to disassemble net neutrality? Let us know in the comments.
If you still can access them. And for future updates on net neutrality, remember to like this video. If you're new around here, subscribe to the Know.
It's only a nickel per comment.
Kicked over to the Supreme Court.
But that might not be necessary anymore, since the basic protections and open internet rules are allegedly going to be on the cutting board next month when the FCC I said when instead of with. Of course, there are plenty of people who disagree with both of those claims. FCC Commissioner, oh God.
I think it's Minion Clyburn.
Yeah.
You like filet mignon.
Minion Clyburn, okay.